Did that connect to the owl? Because it sounded like it only came from the echo. Is the owl plugged in?
Yeah.
It's not plugged in. Oh.
Can you get it?
Oh,
I see it.
Pull the extension. The other one. Swing it over. Please.
There you go.
Got it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes like a couple seconds.
Correcto.
It's waking up.
Tu correo electrónico.
Okay. We need to go down one. Like it takes a couple seconds. We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Welcome everyone to the Community Advisory Council meeting for March 11th, 2026. We'll start with going around the room and introducing ourselves. I'm Lorena Barrera with District 3.
Nancy Pemberton, District 5.
John Alden, I'm the ILO Director.
Susie Martis, brand new CAC for District 1.
I've been sworn in. I'm official.
Brent Kidder, Lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office.
John Esposito, District 4.
Michael Miller, District 4. Alberto Oteo, Member at Large.
Casey Jones, District 2. Trevor Ward, District 3.
Nathan Solomon, District 1.
Imelda Martinez, Distrito 5.
Lisa Camacho with ILO.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2, approval. Oh, sorry. Before we start the meeting, I just wanted to do a quick announcement. We have Eric Ivy in the back. You'll notice with the video recording equipment, and he's recording part of our meeting for a documentary on police oversight. So we're just gonna do everything normally, and don't mind Eric out in the back. Or wherever he goes. Okay, approval of the February 11th, 2026 meeting minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look? Are there any comments, questions from CAC members? Any public comment on the minutes? Jim?
Yeah, I think there's one correction in it, and it talked about, it's on page 8, under the ILO Director's Report, and it said there was disagreement about whether deputies involved in shooting should automatically go on administrative leave. And my memory is that the disagreement was whether they should be interviewed as part of the administrative investigation. And I don't know if anybody else has a similar recollection.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I don't recall any discussion about admin leave.
I think it was interviews for administrative review.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
How about we confirm that with the video recording and then make the proper changes? And then if that's the only change, we can move as approved, and Nancy and I will check that it reflects what was actually discussed, and then we put those amended minutes on the website, if everyone's okay with that. If so, then, thank you, Jim.
It's the first time I ever.
If I could entertain a motion to move as amended for the approval of the minutes.
Yeah.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you,
Second.
Nancy. Is there a second? Thank you, Nate. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Thank you, the motion carries. Moving on to item number 3, current member attendance, openings and appointments. Great attendance today. everyone's here, including myself. I missed the meeting last month, so it's great to see everyone showing up. We have one vacancy in District 2, and we're gonna have our new CAC member, Susie Marquez, introduce herself to everyone. Susie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm in District 1, Sonoma. I'm very excited to be on the CAC committee and be able to go to my community and really kind of understand what's happening there on the legal side and bring it back. So I'm really very excited. I come from a sales and marketing background. I'm retired in Sonoma, and I've been volunteering quite a bit in my valley. It's a great valley to be living in. And I see that there's a lot of disparaging things that happen at certain levels and some at other levels, and I just want to see what I can do to facilitate that conversation for changes.
Thank you, Susie. We're happy to have you. And then Imelda Martinez wanted to make an announcement.
Yo también quiero decirles que mi último mes aquí en Ayolero es en abril, el mes de abril.
She wants everyone to know that her last meeting here as a CAC member will be in April. Her term ends at the end of April.
Gracias, Imelda.
And she doesn't like us, so she's not bringing
Sí me gusta todo.
We told Lizette not to translate that part. Just kidding, she didn't actually say that. Okay, so entonces el mes que viene va a ser su última con nosotros.
Sí.
Gracias. Okay, moving on to oral reports and comments. We'll start with the Sheriff's Liaison report.
Right. Good evening. I'll start first with community engagement. Sheriff's Office engaged in approximately 7 events over the last month. There was a scheduled meet and greet out in Bodega. Unfortunately, that was crashed by about 20 protesters, so the Sheriff's Office was not able to interact and engage with the residents as they saw fit. The Spanish Academy application opened and closed, and that academy is scheduled to start next month in April. The Sonoma County Crime Scene Investigations Unit has been busy with presentations through the Sonoma County Library. On March 3rd, they provided a presentation in Windsor. March 11th, which is earlier today, they went to the Central Library, downtown Santa Rosa. We engaged in the Read Across America program at Wright Elementary School. Members of the Sheriff's Office attended the Steelhead Festival. There was a polar plunge that occurred last weekend, which was a fundraiser for the Special Olympics. The Sheriff's Office ourselves raised approximately $2,900 for that fundraiser, and overall as a county, I was told that the county raised approximately $46,420 for the Special Olympics. And then CSI also attended and presented at the Roseland University Prep School Career Fair. Regarding immigration-related information, last month in February, there were 56 notifications received from ICE. There were 5 requests for information. The Sheriff's Office returned 9 notifications, and there was 1 arrest by ICE in the detention facility. Director Alden sent me an email yesterday, I believe it was, regarding an opportunity to confirm some statistics that have been used in various organizations' correspondence to the Board of Supervisors, if my memory serves me correctly. The organizations, Locian was one of them. I can't remember the other ones.
First 5 and also United Way.
So the statistics that I was asked to confirm were the overall statistics from the year 2024, which the letters and the correspondence refer to as the most recent to date. So I confirmed that those were the 2024 statistics, and they were in fact confirmed. 484 requests for notifications for release. There were 64 responses provided by the Sheriff's Office in the year 2024, and there were 10 arrests. The statement in the letters was not 100% accurate in that, as I believe I've reported, the numbers aren't necessarily correlated with one another. So, for instance, just because we responded to 64 requests doesn't mean that all of those requests were received by the Sheriff's Office in the year 2024. They could have been received a year prior, 2 years prior, 3 years prior. A lot of times it's dependent upon, when we respond to them was when the incarcerated person is released, right? And we all know that court cases often take a long time. So again, those numbers don't necessarily correspond with one another, but there were 64 responses. I did want to reaffirm, I know I've reported it, that the Sheriff's Office policy regarding when we respond is more restrictive than the law allows. And so with that, without the restrictions that the Sheriff's Office has set in place, the reporting very well could have been more. We don't track that. We don't necessarily say, well, what we could have reported, but likely it would have been more because our policy is more restrictive. Did that answer the question, Sean?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I know you did send me another email today, right,
Sorry.
a couple hours ago.
I've been getting asked a lot of questions, so I'm passing on to you.
Yeah, no, I know it's a hot button topic. Let me see if I can do my best to address that. So the question came from, well, it didn't come from Supervisor Corsi, but it was about a post that he had made, correct?
Yeah.
And so it was about, when the Sheriff's Office reports these notifications to ICE, and it was regarding, a lot of it had to do with the CDCR and when somebody goes to prison. So I confirmed with the jail that if the incarcerated person's convictions meet the criteria set forth in the matrix that I know I spoke about, the Sheriff's Office will make those reports to ICE. However, those reports don't occur until after the person has already been transferred to CDCR's custody. That was one of the issues that needed to be clarified, is that right?
I've got a couple questions about that, but
Okay.
what I was trying to figure out was, other people have asked me this question and I realized I wasn't sure the answer. So when you were giving the example of the 2024 and 10 arrests that followed from notifications,
Mhm.
right? I had thought I understood that folks like the 10 folks in 2024 that were picked up by ICE were at a stage in the criminal justice process where they're going to be just released back into the public. Their cases were resolved, whatever custody time they needed to finish was over, and they were now free to go. Perhaps they had a probation grant, they needed to be on probation for a while, or otherwise out. But then I was asked, well, might some of them have been actually released from the jail, but into the custody of some other agency, like given to the state's prison system, CDCR, or maybe transferred to another jail somewhere else where they had a case pending, say, in another county. And I realized I wasn't sure. I had thought I understood that the folks like those 10 people were all free to go for all purposes. But then I realized I might not have been thoughtful enough about how to ask that question. Maybe some of those people had other holds, as we call them in the criminal justice world, right? Or had a commitment, as we call it, to state prison, but still ended up being transferred to ICE. I don't think that's the case, but I don't know that I've asked.
So let me see if I can clarify. So the 10 arrests that were reported for year 2024, remember the statistics that I have started reporting, which include that statistic, are all arrests inside the facility. Okay? We don't allow ICE to come into the facility without a warrant or a hold. So those individuals were not free to go. So when ICE arrests inside the Sheriff's Office facility, there is a warrant signed by a magistrate for that person's arrest.
So they're not, it's not related to your notification necessarily.
Correct. It may not.
They may have gotten a judicial warrant without being notified from you.
Without knowing CDCR's policies or ICE's policies, but it sounds reasonable that that could be a possibility, yes. But again, if I'm reporting a statistic about an arrest inside the facility, that means that that individual had a warrant signed by a judge. And on that happy note, that's all I got.
I have a question, Lieutenant. The numbers you gave, 56,591, were those for January of this year?
Those would have been for February.
Thank you.
Any other questions from CAC members? Okay, well, I'll just go over quickly the public correspondence report. We did receive one email from Jim Duffy related to advocacy on a bill, and I'll give a report on the subcommittee idea or standing committee idea that I had that we can't do. So I will do that later. We did meet about that. So that's the last report. Now we'll take public comment on any of the reports that were provided.
Director's report.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Can we go over the director's report?
No, I mean, we can skip it. It's all right.
No, that one's very important.
All right. So, I'm often asked at these meetings if there's any update on our appeal of the first district relating to our ability to issue subpoenas in whistleblower cases, and there is not. The deadline for the court to make a decision, I'm told, is in late April, so maybe we'll know something at the next meeting or the meeting after that. Coming up in the near future, there are a couple meetings of the Board of Supervisors you might find interesting. One is at the week of April 20th for several days. The board has its budget workshops, which is an annual part of the county's process of creating a new budget. The new budget won't be adopted until the summertime, but the budget workshops in April are an opportunity to learn more about how the county thinks its finances will look in the upcoming fiscal year, starting July 1. And the answer to that is in certain parts of county operations, it's pretty dire because the federal government has cut back pretty substantially, especially on safety net programs and health and human services. So I'm told there will be a thorough presentation about those topics, and there will also be presentations from individual departments about their budgets, what funding they'd like to receive in the upcoming year and the like. As I mentioned, that runs for a week, and the schedule of which department is going to be on which day has not been released yet, to my knowledge. So you'll just want to keep track of the agendas from the Board of Supervisors if you're curious to check those out. In addition to that, in May, again, last I was told, on the 12th, tentatively is scheduled the Truth Act report from the Sheriff's Office. Now, that's far enough out that that date could move. You know, the board does move some dates around now and again. And that has been a topic that's come up a fair bit recently, so you might want to pencil that in on your calendars. And again, keep track of the Board of Supervisors' published agendas to make sure that date actually sticks. But that's the date that we usually see the Sheriff's Office making a presentation about some of the issues we've already talked about tonight. You know, who at the jail might be someone that we, as a county, talk to ICE about. How does ICE interact with the jail and the Sheriff's Office more generally, and a review of some of the statistics we talk about here. That's not a presentation by ILARO, it's by the Sheriff's Office. That, I think, is an important topic for us to hit briefly tonight in this report because I have certainly been getting a lot of questions from the public about ICE and immigration-related issues in the last year in general, but especially over the last month. One of the sets of questions I got were just deeper dives on some of the sheriff's data, like you heard Lieutenant Kidder and I talking about earlier in this meeting. As you also heard earlier in the meeting, Supervisor Corsi put out a newsletter not long ago saying that he really thought the county could communicate with ICE even less, and particularly with respect to the notification process we were talking about earlier. He pitched that he'd like to see that ended. I don't think I've heard that from any other members of the board, but there is also an ad hoc committee of the board working on immigration-related issues, including that one. And I understand they're tentatively looking to come back to the Board of Supervisors with a report and or some kind of action item, perhaps in the next month or so. I don't have a solid date, and that's not necessarily a promise, but that is to say, if you're really interested in these issues, again, watch the board's agenda packets very closely over the next month, because you might see that topic come back up again. Another thing that I've been asked about a lot lately, which is very closely related, is a federal program called SCAP. That is the program that the federal government uses to reimburse local folks like the County of Sonoma for the cost of incarcerating people who also have some kind of an immigration issue, right? They're both incarcerated either before trial or after for an alleged or convicted crime. And then the federal government, if we share a fair bit of information with them about who those individuals are, they're willing to then give us some money. Historically, the County of Sonoma has participated in that program, and the amount that we get in past fiscal years has varied from, roughly speaking, $70,000 to $100,000 in a year. So it's not a huge amount of money, but compared to the entire budget for the county. But it is enough money that it's a substantial sum. And the reason people have been asking me about the county's participation in that program is that increasingly a lot of other local counties have decided to opt out of that program. So just a few weeks ago, the county of Marin, our neighbor to the south, decided to opt out of that program moving forward after much debate. From what I've been able to pick up from talking to people in other communities and also just following media coverage, it sounds like, I hope I'm right about this, the county of Napa has opted out, the county of San Mateo has opted out, and those are of course counties that have some similarity to ours. There are some other larger counties that have been opted out for quite a while, like San Francisco, Santa Clara, Los Angeles recently opted out. Sheriff Villanueva, who's the current sheriff there, said his concern was as he put it, he felt like he was selling information about who was in the jail to ICE. I don't know if I entirely agree with that characterization, but that quote from him definitely caught a lot of media, and that's picked up a lot of attention. So because these other counties are opting out, oh, and I should mention, there's been at least some reporting in East Bay that Alameda County is talking about opting out in this next cycle. I don't know where the County of Sonoma is on this issue right now, but I know that it's one that's been coming up regionally in all the other counties in the Bay Area, and so I expect we'll probably hear more about that moving forward. Part of the reason I mention that now is that budget workshops in April, ones I mentioned earlier, with April 20th, would be a natural time to start thinking about, are we going to do that or not? That's with the Truth Act presentation in May and the final budget adoption in June. So over the next few months, that would be a natural time to have a conversation about whether we as a county want to participate in SCAP as we have in previous years. So because a lot of people are asking about that, I want to make sure I got you the information I have so far. There's also been a fair number of organizations that have been asking the Board of Supervisors to create a statute that, a local ordinance, that more robustly sets limits on how the county communicates with ICE. And if the board chooses to do that, it could affect these two issues we've been talking about tonight, SCAP, and also how we do or do not respond to ICE. So it seems that all these things are coming to a conversation at the same time, and I would anticipate as CAC members, you will probably be asked yourselves about these issues over the next couple of months, and these meetings will probably generate more media attention and conversation. So all that's to say, you will probably be asked a lot about all these topics in the next few months, and I hope the information information I got you is helpful in figuring out where you want to be. I think these are probably all a good topic for the immigration ad hoc to be talking about sooner rather than later, only because the public moment for these conversations is the next couple of months, not next year. Right? So if you want to be involved in that conversation, now's probably the time. We, earlier this week, finally, sorry I was so late, finished our final piece of our annual report last year. One of the things that we do at ILARO is follow a set of procedures that come from the federal government called the Yellow Book, and all about how one does audits and how one memorializes the work done in those audits. And part of that is issuing an annual report, having a response from the sheriff's office, and if there's anything you think we need to reply to, we'll reply. So we finally got that done last week, which you might have seen in our newsletter. I realize it's a little bit old news. We're going to try to make sure that happens more promptly in the future. It was an unusual year. That is everything I've got for the report.
Thank you. Now we can take comments from CAC members on all the reports. Sorry about that earlier. Questions?
Let me just, the immigration ad hoc is going to be talking about both those issues actually tonight. And I just want to say that I had asked Brent for some information about the SCAP program, which I have from him. So we've got more information about that.
I did actually want to ask about that because Lieutenant Kidder, as Nancy just mentioned, asked some questions about that because we wanted to know if we were participating. And it sounds like the Chief of Financial and Administrative Services said there aren't any applications to provide, and there are not currently any funding opportunities available through that program. And it looks like we didn't get any funding from them for fiscal year 2025. So does that mean that we're not participating? We haven't been participating since the end of fiscal year 2024, or how does it work?
When I spoke with the chief, she indicated that it's not something that we're currently doing, but she didn't definitively tell me that we're not interested in it either. So I will have to clarify that.
So we could
Seems
be
like we
like part of
haven't.
it, but we're not signing anything, so we're not getting money, or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Okay.
So I can try to clarify that if, go back and ask a question. If applications become available, is that something we're going to do, or we're gonna look into and see what she says? I don't know that her and the sheriff have had that discussion, because again, we didn't do it last year. Was that the most recent year, or was it even maybe 2 years? Or was I looking
2024,
at-
fiscal year 2024 was the last.
2024, okay. So, yeah, it seems like something that we haven't done in at least a couple years, and I did not get the inclination that we were looking at starting it up again, but it doesn't even sound like it's available at the moment, so I'll have to clarify.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from CC members?
Excuse me, when you
Yeah.
refer to chief, who are you referring to?
Her name is Connie Newton. She is the Chief of Financial and Administrative Services. She self-admits that it's the longest title in our agency.
John, if there's going to be an ordinance along the lines that you just identified, floated, where's that ordinance, where's the language for that ordinance coming from? What's the impetus,
Well, I think there are two parts to that answer. So if an ordinance were to be presented, you would eventually see that in an agenda item at a board meeting, presumably in the near future, because the conversation that's happening right now. I haven't seen an actual draft of an ordinance coming from any of the board members yet. So that's how it will become visible. That's how you would see it. Right? As to why someone would do it right now, I think that's maybe the second part of your question. The impression I have is that the board has passed a resolution last year talking about the county's commitment to the immigrant community here in Sonoma County, and reasserting that we as a county, not just the sheriff's office or ILARO or Department of Health, it's our intention to only collaborate with ICE, to only communicate with ICE when that's required by law. Right? And make that as minimal as possible. And there's been a public education campaign and definitely a campaign around educating county employees too about that topic, so that communication with the public is very consistent. And also to make county spaces, as a general rule, clearly marked so you can tell which ones are private, and therefore ICE can't just walk through them and see if there's someone there that they might want to put their hands on, and others that are public. Right? So that whole process over the last year, as it has been explained to me, still leaves some of the community feeling there's more we can do. That those steps I just described maybe weren't enough, and that an ordinance instead of a resolution would be a stronger statement. And you do see other counties that have done that. Often they'll call them a sanctuary ordinance. They don't always use that term, but sometimes they actually have a statute that actually creates a law, as opposed to just a resolution expressing intent. So that's how it's been explained to me by people who are advocates for that. And if you look at the statement from Supervisor Corsi and some letters, say that LOCN, for example, has very publicly put out there, they cite the concern that the tone has really changed in the last year, and from their perspective, ICE is undermining law enforcement's credibility with the community in general, and that for both practical relationship reasons, but also moral reasons, it's important to disassociate from ICE as much as we possibly can as a county. And so that's a policy preference that those groups have been putting out there pretty strongly. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I guess really the question goes to, is somebody on the board that you're aware of asking county council to prepare an ordinance? Or is it not that far advanced, or?
Well, if someone on the board asks county council to create an ordinance, I might not be in the loop on that, because it'd probably be attorney-client privileged, at least at an early stage. And I clearly can say that Supervisor Corsi's public statement last month was very squarely in favor of creating a stronger document. Presumably that's an ordinance. But I don't know that I've seen an ordinance come from him yet. Maybe that's coming up there.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I guess I had a question. For Lieutenant
You know-
Titter. Yep, you go.
Can I just say that there is a draft ordinance? This letter from First Five says that take action to adopt the draft ordinance currently known as Ordinance of the County of Sonoma, State of California Board of Supervisors to uphold the civil rights, dignity, health, and safety of our immigrant population and all Sonoma County residents. So apparently there is one.
I can add to that that's one suggested by First Five.
Okay.
I've not seen that proposed by, say, a member of the board or in the official documents of the county.
Thank you.
So quick, maybe not a quick question, but a question for you. So has there been any discussion that you're aware of between law enforcement agencies in Sonoma County in terms of how to respond if ICE were to come to Sonoma County and commit crimes like the ones we saw in Minneapolis?
I'm not privy to those conversations. I'd have to ask the sheriff.
Okay.
If in his chiefs and sheriffs meetings, if that discussion's being had. Me and professional standards is not privy to those conversations.
Okay, I'd be curious to hear about that.
We'll open it up to public comment now. This would be on any of the reports that were provided. And we'll do 3 minutes. And we can start with you, Jim.
Mine's more a request for ILRA staff to just check your website. I think that this response that Director Alden put out to the sheriff's response to the annual report was the second time we've done one of those, or maybe the third. And I think the sheriff has always responded to every single annual report. But when I go on the website, I don't see all those documents. So they're not up there. But I remember them being released historically. So it would be great if we could go find where they were and get them up there for transparency purposes, so that all the, because all the reports are out there, but not all the sheriff's responses are out there. And I don't think all the comments on the sheriff's responses are out there.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments from everyone in the room? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment. It's more about the state of the country as reflected in having people come out of the jail, having served their time or, you know, been exonerated or whatever it is that happens, they're now released. This is telling us that if they can be arrested and deported, we have a really low opinion of our incarceration system. It's basically saying, you may have done this time, you have been released, and yet we don't consider you worthy of being out in the world. You are still a danger. And I find that profoundly offensive. I find it a real condemnation of the system. And I think my great-grandfather was an activist for prison reform. And that was more than 90 years ago we started doing that. And we haven't made much progress in those 90 years. And I just consider the whole thing horrifying, given that we've got models, other models in the world that we could be using. And it also indicates to me that a person born in the United States, you know, a citizen who committed a crime and then went through the system and then was released, if the country could, they'd want to kick that person out too. You know, it's the whole thing is so horrifying to me that to just talk about it dispassionately is very difficult for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Any other comments from people in the room? Doesn't look like we have hands raised on Zoom, so we'll close public comment.
I didn't get to comment.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see
Sorry.
you back there.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Adina Flores, and I'm actually the leading civil rights activist for all of Sonoma County. So I'm wondering why my correspondence to ILARO, being that I speak on thousands and thousands of people in this community, was not agendized. And for years now, this is supposed to be the democratic group that elevates Black and brown voices, which I'm here to speak on behalf of, and I've never received a response back. I've even gone in person to the office and not heard back. So here's why I'm extremely upset. I'm in court right now with Sonoma Valley Boys and Girls Club. I actually won my hearing today. The demur was overruled by the plaintiffs. I'm a self-represented litigant. I graduated top in my high school class, top 20 of around 600 students. My mother was dying of stage 4B uterine cancer my junior and senior year. So because I can read, my father was a white man who was a felon. Because I can read and I understand how people move money here through fake nonprofits, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I'm the former executive assistant to the board and superintendent of Santa Rosa Schools. As a mandated reporter, I've been publishing personnel files because this community, in conjunction with law enforcement, is covering up child molestation. I'm in court with Boys and Girls Club because over 40 Latino children were molested at the club by the former athletic director, Paul Kilgore, who's doing 150 years in state prison. They are claiming that my statements are defamatory. However, to this day, a year and a half in, the plaintiff's attorneys cannot speak to what I've said that's allegedly defamatory. The reason I'm telling you this is John Doe #1, the oldest. All these children were Latino boys who were undocumented. The oldest was deported. These children were being filmed and forced to do sexual acts with each other. So after that, John Doe 1 was ready to testify. He was deported and killed himself. So nobody in this community, this case has been ongoing for nearly 10 years now, and nobody cares. So that's not the only occurrence. At Santa Rosa Junior College, there is a former sheriff's deputy, Christopher Lamonto, who's being framed for a crime he did not commit. I've sent you all these articles. He also was a mandated reporter. The investors of Epicenter, Kelly and Mike Seacrest, They also were investors to a prep academy for hockey out in South Lake Tahoe where his son attended. So being that they did not want to go to law enforcement to turn in the founder of that academy, Jamie James, who was raping children, Kelly Seacrest filed a fraudulent restraining order against him, and then the sheriff's office, his former employer, was utilized to attempt to murder him. They did the same thing to my co-defendant, Ms. Laura Ainsworth, who was also a mandated reporter. They are both faculty at Santa Rosa Junior College. So I've shown this through a multitude of different local agencies that this community is covering up child rape. And so unfortunately, I've never looked into Iolero. At this point, I do. Jerry Threet, the former executive director, actually exchanged words with me that I sent you in writing online. And he essentially told me he was molested as a child, and I'm too self-absorbed for him to care. So God bless you. Please find Christ. Please help these children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
And just for future reference, that type of comment, first I thought it was related to correspondence. I think if you want to send correspondence to the CAC, and separate from Iolero, that email address is cac@sonomacounty.gov. Otherwise, that comment would have been for the open time part of our meeting for items not on the agenda. We apologize that you haven't received a response, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's just like kids are getting raped in this community, you guys don't care, so that concerns me.
Okay,
So
we're
God bless
moving
you.
on to item number 5, business items, and we'll start with 5A, discussion and possible action on acceptance of the 2026 CAC work plan and SMART goals. Those SMART goals and the work plan are all in the packet. There's a summary talking about, this is basically the report on what happened at the retreat for our annual strategic planning workshop that we all add to and then once approved, send to the Board of Supervisors so that they're aware of what we're working on this year. And similar to last year, the SMART goals are incorporated to also help us stay on track on what we are committing to for this calendar year. Lizette started a draft and we have a finalized version in the packet, and we're looking for discussion and if you have any changes, and if not, a motion to approve the work plan and the SMART goals from the different ad hocs. Any comments from CAC members?
So I do have a minor comment with regard to on the bottom of the first page of the work plan. So these bullet points that go on to the second page, these are summary of what we did last year?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
on all of the various ad hocs.
Okay, so for the first bullet, I would suggest that we say that the CAC recommended changes rather than the way this is stated, you know, through, etc. The CAC recommended changes.
Right.
It adopted recommendations that were made by the ad hoc committee. So that's I think that's a stronger and more accurate presentation of what took place. We made recommendations to the greater CAC. Greater CAC said, yes, those are our recommendations, and then sent them to the appropriate people.
So just so we have it correctly, can you read out how you want that bullet point to read?
Yeah, so we're recording this, so you can look at it later?
Yep.
Okay, so I would say the CAC adopted changes, recommended changes to the current K-9 policy of SCSO, period. The recommendations were offered to the CAC by the K-9 ad hoc committee, period. the sheriff's office adopted certain of the recommended changes to policy, rejected other changes to policy, and has taken no action on other recommended changes to the policy. I think that would be accurate as to what took place.
I would say that in the first suggested change that we, instead of using the word adopted, that we say approved. Because we approved recommendations, we're not adopting them for ourselves. And I disagree in including all of what the sheriff decided to do. We're not doing that for the other ad hocs in detail, and we are hyperlinking the written letter, which on there says what the sheriff decided to do, what they're still working on, and what they're not doing. So we're referencing back to those documents, and I don't think we need to add all those details in there, but that's just my opinion.
And that's fair. That's a fair comment. Maybe all that detail is not required there. I do think that the use of the word followed is less clear than adopted, like they actually adopted, rather than followed, which I'm not sure what that actually means. That could be interpreted a lot of different ways in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so I would just say CAC approved changes to the current canine policy of this SCSO recommended by the Canine Policy Ad Hoc Committee.
That works great.
Okay.
And that the SCSO adopted certain of their recommendations, because that's what happened, instead of followed.
Well, but it should be discussing work that we did, and then we don't really go into detail on what the sheriff decided to do.
Well, I mean, we are currently saying the canine policy followed by the SCSO, so.
I think it's referring to the canine policy that was currently being used by the SCSO rather than the changes that were followed by the SCSO.
Okay.
The followed.
Okay, but I think it's ambiguous.
Yeah. Well, I think that being
Clearly.
people who approved the draft, that's what we meant.
Yeah, and
The
also,
legislative history.
even for the RIPA ad hoc committee, we talked about making several recommendations. We didn't list out what was approved by the sheriff, what he agreed to do or not. We're just trying to keep it to the work that we did when we handed over our recommendations to the sheriff. We don't really go into details into what the sheriff then decided to do with our formal recommendations, which is why we think we should just narrow it down to the work that we did. So if you're okay with the sentence change that Nancy kind of combined based on what you were stating, then we can make that amendment.
I think that's good. And I would suggest that the remainder say to the canine policy of the SCSO.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Rather than followed.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There's also an extra bullet point there.
Oh, yeah. We'll take that out. Thank you.
I appreciate the concise bullet list too. So I like keeping it to 2 and 3 lines. It's nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there any public comment on the work plan or the SMART goals? Yeah.
I have one question. Is there a place where you do what Casey was trying to say, I think, which is, we requested this, we accomplished that? Like, where you list your accomplishments to your own one.
So, is that the end of your comment? Okay, to respond to that, we do have the ad hoc web pages that where we put our reports, and if we get responses and things like that from the sheriff's office, we try to make sure that we have them up there for the public to also view. I don't know if, I think the ad hocs have to provide those to Lizette and I don't know how many have, but that's typically where we would put things like that.
It's just a nice public record for what CAC accomplishes.
Yeah, tracing back.
Time
We're
to
gonna
go.
find them.
We also
Yeah.
talked about putting those in the annual report at times, I think, for bigger accomplishments.
That's true, and we have also added them to the annual report when we work on the summaries or the section that's specific to the work of the CAC.
It's a good question, good point, yeah.
Any other public comment? No one online? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment for this item, and if there aren't any final changes, then I'll take a motion to approve as amended.
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Alberto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Thank you all. This is, this will be added to, we will make the change, added to the website, and then Lizette can send us a link when that's there, and that way we all have the location to where it lives, so we can refer back to the work plan and all of our SMART goals, and we'll also be sharing it with the Board of Supervisors. Okay, moving on to the next business item. Discussion and possible action on lack of public notification from Sonoma County Sheriff's Office regarding the death of bystander Robert Sidehier that resulted from October 5th, 2025 car crash during high-speed chase by Deputy Sam Camarena Cruz. So this was brought to, we first learned about it through an article in the Press Democrat. I did want to let you all know that I let the sheriff know that we would have this on the agenda tonight, in case he wanted to come and speak on this item. And he felt that it was too early to discuss because we don't have all of the information. And actually, because it's a public record anyway, I'll read kind of what he said. He said, there are a lot of differences in this case. The individual was not in Sonoma County Sheriff's custody. They weren't pursuing him, and a collision was what resulted in the chase that was going on. The individual was in the hospital, and it sounds like someone with authority to end care was how it occurred. He stated, we don't know if the deputy was at fault or not. I mentioned to him that typically we've seen statements from his office when we've seen deaths resulting from Sonoma County Sheriff's, from the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office due to incidents that they're working on. And he said, it is true we do make statements if the person dies in our custody. This person was not in our custody. The Marine coroner classified the death as an accident. Until we know if the deputy was at fault or not, we do not know if the death was a result of our deputy's actions or the actions of that individual. So because Sheriff Ingram thought it was premature to have this discussion, that is why he's not here. I did tell him that we typically write out that we're gonna have a discussion and possible action in case, so that we can have this discussion, and if any ideas come about from the item, that we take action, that way we don't have to wait for a future meeting. So I just let him know that we would be talking about the article that was in the press, and we didn't have anything planned that was like specific to an action. So because it's related to the sheriff's office, that's why we put it on the agenda, and we'd like to open it up for discussion for you all, if you have anything to provide.
I don't know that this is, I understand the sheriff's position. I think, however, in the interest of transparency, this was an incident that involved a deputy. There was a car accident in which the deputy was involved, and a person died as part of that incident. And I would hope that in the interest of transparency, that we would hear from the sheriff that this person passed away. This person didn't have a lot of didn't have family, so there was no civil lawsuit brought. That would, something that lawsuit would trigger some response from the public, it would go before the Board of Supervisors to discuss litigation and all of that kind of thing. So it would have become known at that point had there been civil litigation brought. His death. We knew about the accident, that was reported in the paper. We did not know that the person died. And I would like to ask the sheriff, in the interest of transparency, to please inform us. He doesn't have to say that anybody's at fault. He can say, nobody has been found at fault. The coroner ruled this an accident, but somebody died. And somebody died as part of it's a consequence of part of an incident involving the sheriff's deputy. And I think that under a broad reading of Measure P, that would be something that ILERO could take into consideration.
Does anyone have any comments? I support Nancy's comments, and I feel like there's also a more kind of more of a presence on social media on things like stops or arrests or things like that. And I feel like just a statement saying, like kind of what Nancy said, that there was some involvement. There don't have to be details, but when I first read it, and I don't really read the paper like at all unless something is brought up on things that I'm working on. I have my own personal opinions about certain things. So if something's brought to my attention, then I do look into it. And I was kind of shocked that we hadn't heard anything at all about it. Not that we needed details, but I felt like Sheriff Ingram's been pretty transparent, which is why I mentioned it in my email to him. So I think just maybe asking him for a little bit more transparency on things involving his office or incidents would be good, whether it's his office at fault or not, but just an involvement I think would be helpful. So that way it doesn't look like what it was presented as in the paper. Like, I felt like the way it was presented, it was like the sheriff's office was hiding something from the public, and sometimes it's hard to correct the media if that's, you know, not what the real story is, and it's kind of too late at that point. So just getting ahead of a story by being transparent, even if it doesn't include all the details, I think is good for everyone, in my opinion.
I mean, it's odd. I didn't hear about this either at the time, and I read the paper every day, but it is odd to me that a Sonoma County Sheriff's deputy seriously injured someone in a wreck that was part of a pursuit, although that's a little bit of a debatable thing. It seemed clear that there was a pursuit because there was reference of street racing. So even if the lights weren't on, it was a soft kind of pursuit, right? That alone should be, I think, put to the public. Just the facts of like that it occurred, that the person was seriously injured, I think are important facts. And to your point, I mean, if you don't do that and it gets lost somehow in the mix, and then the person dies later and we hear about it, it has a feeling of a cover-up at that point because it wasn't put forward. You know, I feel like when a sheriff's deputy is hurt, we hear about it. So I feel like when they hurt someone in the community, they should make a point of publicizing that.
Let me say, the chase and the injury were reported in the press.
Okay, I missed it.
You just missed
so
it.
I missed it, and that's bad on me.
But what
Yeah.
wasn't reported was that the guy died.
Right, and that was later.
Yeah.
That happened later. Yeah.
But that's what felt, when I read it, this article, that's what felt weird. It's like, I didn't know that guy died, you know.
Yeah.
I remember that incident, but why weren't we told that he died?
Yeah, my question was, is your concern the transparency that the sheriff's office report every accident of a deputy or every accident with an injury? it doesn't seem realistic to report every accident, because I'm sure there's a fair number of accidents. So I'm not clear if the thought is transparency is of all accidents, whether injury or not, or just injury. And, you know, the accident was very detailed article in the paper, very detailed article about it. And so there's some transparency there. The sheriff's office was quoted in that article, I believe. So I'm not clear what transparency is being sought after. The death, is it just that the sheriff's office should have come out and said there was serious injury by a citizen, or there was a death? Is that what you believe?
Are you asking me?
Or
Yeah.
the idea of
Yeah,
more
I think that there's
transparency
a- I
on
think that
injury
there's-
and or death?
I think if there's a death of somebody who and it may have been as a result of the action of a deputy, we should be told.
Well, it was clearly the action of the deputy, whether or not there was any negligence or.
It doesn't have to be.
criminal conduct.
That decision is.
No, I don't disagree with you. I'm just trying to clarify whether we're seeking the sheriff to tell us about all accidents, or all accidents that cause serious injury, or accidents that cause death.
I think accidents that cause death. There was, I feel like if they reported on all accidents, it would be like never ending.
That's right.
How are we gonna define that, you know? He might have to hire more staff for,
I think it's serious injury though, right? I mean, I think it's serious
Yeah.
injury is the standard to me. And the other part of this story that is interesting is that this same person had been involved in a prior accident and seriously injured someone else. So then you have like, it becomes more of a story at that point because there's a history, a pattern. And that's, I think, in public interest for sure.
And there's 2 years yet to go. The statute of limitations on, you know, the death and injury won't run until October 2027. So it may still pop up as litigation.
So the question that I have is, are you imagining some kind of a soft communication to the sheriff, whether written or unwritten, that says, hey, we think you ought to do X, Y, Z? Or are you imagining the adoption or recommendation of a policy that says, under the following circumstances, the sheriff's department should report this in this way, right? Because those are two very different approaches to take, and one is just a little bit more of a soft communication, like I'm saying, and the other one is a request. Hey, this didn't happen. We didn't like that. Here's how we think your office should report incidents in the future. Boom, here it is. We think you should adopt this.
Well, I think she should have it on the agenda and have it be something to talk further about. That's something I certainly would support myself.
Is there a media policy statement with respect to some of this stuff, or not really in your view? I mean, if you know.
Yeah, there's a policy that governs that. At the end of the day, I mean, Lorena, you said it yourself, the sheriff has been transparent in his communications. He didn't make a notification because he felt it's premature, that there's more information that needs to be gathered. And when all the information is gathered, there likely will be a post about it. I mean, now maybe after the fact, maybe it's a moot point. But at the end of the day, his goal was to gather the information. I mean, again, we're going around the room and I'm hearing the deputy caused the collision, the deputy caused the accident. We don't know that yet. It has not been decided.
Nobody said that.
No.
They said he was involved. We are not saying that he caused it.
At first it's caused and then it's changed.
Okay.
At first it's caused and then you correct the word. And that's exactly the point. We don't know yet. And so when I would imagine, again, I'm not part of the GIO team and I'm not the sheriff, so I am stepping a little bit on a limb and likely speaking for him, but his conversations with me about this, because obviously we had conversations when you sent the email and this was agendized, was that we're not hiding anything. We don't have all the information yet.
Let me respond to you by saying that IOLERO has the authority under Measure P to investigate incidents resulting in the death of a person in custody of the sheriff coroner or results from the actions of an employee, and they have authority to conduct an independent investigation. Now, the investigation determines whether the actions of the employee resulted in the death. You don't make that decision first and then ask them to investigate. The investigation occurs so that you find out whether
Well, that's
somebody...
the purpose of the California Highway Patrol's investigation. And that's not been
But it's
decided.
also the purview of IOLERO. And IOLERO can't do their job if they don't know somebody died.
But again, we don't know that the deputy caused the collision. That has not been decided upon.
The investigation isn't...
There will be an investigation completed by CHP. They're in the middle of it. It's not completed yet. And when the results of that investigation come out, likely there will be a post, and then that information is then relayed to the public, and then if it is involving and determined to be the result of the deputy, then IOLERO, by all means, in accordance with Measure P, would have the right to investigate it. It's just premature.
So that's not going to be decided here, right?
No, I know,
But
but
what can be decided here, though, is whether this body wants to look at providing some guidance to the sheriff that in our judgment would say, your PIO should report in this way under these circumstances, and we think you should adopt this policy. To me, that's the response to this.
It's without regard to cost.
Right. Yeah, so I think the question is, you know, my view of the question is that if somebody wants to push this forward, it could be along the lines of, here's how the PIO should report, when they should report, and what they should report. And bring that back to this body, and this body acts on it.
What do you guys think about that?
Just for clarification, can I, of course, just because you just said, I don't know if it was just in general, just whenever there's a death. I mean, the county experiences over hundreds of deaths every year. You want to report on every coroner's case that comes out? Is that what we're looking for?
Where a deputy's involved, where a sheriff's employee's involved, that's all I'm saying.
So whatever committee comes up with this policy, make sure we set out specific, you know, guidelines on what you expect, because it would be inappropriate to report on every death, kind of like it would be inappropriate, I can't remember who made the comment, on every accident that involves a deputy, and we don't report every time a deputy gets hurt. That would be a full-time job as well.
Yeah, no, it just on a death related, without regard to fault or cause or anything like that, the citizen died involved in this incident, period, without cause or fault at all. That's all going to be hashed out later. I think the public probably would support being told.
I agree with Michael. I think just a statement in general. And I understand your point on we have to wait for CHP to basically determine if the deputy was at fault or not. And then, so if it's found, according to them, that it was an accident and the deputy wasn't at fault, does that mean that IOLERO doesn't get to investigate? Even though...
I think there's probably an argument to be had.
It's not up to them, right? I mean, they don't determine when that occurs or not.
Right, Measure P would, and
Yeah.
if it was in the custody of, which I think we can all agree this person was not in the custody of the sheriff's office, right? And then if the deputy was found not to be at fault, well then it's not necessarily due to the actions of the deputy, it could be due to the actions of the other drivers, some other circumstance, right? So that again,
you know,
that might be our interpretation of Measure P. I'm sure other people have a
Well, let's get John first, he hasn't spoken, and then we'll go to Casey.
Thank you. I think obviously we're going down the path of having some form of a letter put together, and I think one of the things I think we want to make sure we capture is in this case, the sheriff did talk about the incident when it happened. It's the follow-up 15 days later when the person passed away. So we want to make sure we capture that, like, if there's an incident that happens, that, okay, the sheriff reports on it, but then that person passes away at a later date and causes, I mean, we need the follow-up piece of it, because that's, I think, where I think there feels like from this group, there's some misdirection or lack of communication coming out of the sheriff's office, that happened. And no, we didn't track the person's status in the hospital for the 15 days until they passed away, but it's like, we kind of feel like there's like, well, what the hell happened that we weren't communicated that the guy died, you know? So anyway, we just gotta make sure we capture that, not just the initial, was there a serious injury or death? Because I think we're generally getting the initial explosion of the thing, it's the follow-up.
And again, without blame.
No, 100%, no blame, just,
Right.
by the way, a person that was in an incident passed away. It's
CHP
being
is
investigated,
investigating.
yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As a start.
Blame will come
I-
later. Yeah.
Casey, did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we go to public comment?
It just seems like if there are people that are on this body who want to propose action by this body, right? Because that's what I'm hearing coming out of that. Then that action just has to be defined, like, here's the action that we propose that the entire CAC adopt. Perhaps it's a communication, perhaps it's a proposed policy or policy change, right? Something specific. Because otherwise, then, you know, we're just talking about communication to the sheriff that says, hey, we don't like the way you did that thing that time.
Right.
I'm not sure what impact that has.
I don't think that's the intent. So I'm gonna open it up to public comment, and I think we get a lot of ideas from the public, so let's hear from them. If there are any comments, and then I think we should come back and discuss an actual action on how we should move forward with a recommendation to the sheriff. Okay, so let's start with public comment in the room. Is there any public comment in the room? Tony?
It seems like a question of principle, and that CAC Islero should be notified in the event of an officer involved. That doesn't mean that the officer is involved, it just means that the officer was involved.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I agree. I think it's absolutely should be, ILRO should be informed if there's a deputy involved, extreme injury or death. I don't think it has to be just death. I think also serious injury, because that warrants an independent investigation, possibly, which is the role of ILRO.
Thank you. Any other comments from members in the room?
Just a plus one.
Go ahead.
A plus one to that.
Oh, to what was said?
Just I agree.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And no hands raised from attendees online. Okay, so now we will bring it back to the CAC for possible action. It sounds like we could make an informal, well, it would be formal because we would be approving it, but something through maybe a letter in writing to the sheriff that asks that separately from whatever announcements he already does per his own policies, that ILRO be informed of incidents that lead to serious injuries and or deaths that involve deputies from his office.
So that's in the line of duty or not, or both?
What do you,
I don't know, because your sentence is a little vague, because
Can you say it again?
are we
I'm like
talking
writing and
in the
thinking
line
at
of
the same
duty or
time,
not?
sorry.
No, I just was thinking through your points of clarification earlier, and, I mean, are we talking about only in the line of duty, or is this, like, what if there's I'll give a hypothetical, domestic violence case or something, right?
I think we should
And
start with in the
injury.
line of duty,
Okay.
in the line of duty, like they're responding to a call or
Right.
an incident, and because that's what it sounds like they were doing here.
Yep.
And so, just as a follow-up, aside from posting about the incident, having follow-up on the incident, and informing Iolera of the incident, and something simple like what Michael said, just stating, you know, informing Iolera this incident took place, and then giving a follow-up when it's needed, and then stating this agency is conducting an investigation. We don't know if it was caused by the deputy or not, and you will be informed, and let Iolero take it from there, but just keeping Iolero in the loop, I think is important.
Do you want to stand right?
Yeah, John.
Thank you. That's an interesting question about whether you want to add in the line of duty or not. I noticed Measure P doesn't have that phrase.
Oh.
I don't know if that's important or not important, because I didn't write it. One of the people who did write it sitting over there, Jim, you might have.
I didn't write that part.
I mention that because Nate, you brought up a hypothetical that sadly does happen.
Right.
So, you know, that is an important distinction probably for you to make. And I honestly hadn't thought about the fact that in the line of duty does not actually appear in the language of Measure P until you brought it up. So I appreciate you flagging that topic.
John,
Thank you, John.
what obligation does the sheriff have to inform you, your entity, agency, of anything related to the conduct of a deputy at the present time?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. Our current operational agreement, letters of agreement, and Measure P, I don't believe speak to that directly. In some other systems, I have seen a notice requirement that is part of a local policy or a local ordinance or the like about when the law enforcement agency tells the oversight agency that, say, a deputy or officer involved shooting is happening. I'm not aware that we have one in Sonoma County.
I agree, I don't think that language exists in Measure P or any of the letters.
Right.
Now, I can't recall it, and I looked at it more than once.
I think that's right. So in this case suggests that we should create one, right? Likewise, I would say an ongoing disconnect we have between Iolera and the sheriff's office is a conversation I mentioned before, which is our belief that Measure P is the operational document. That's the foundation. And the letters of agreement add some additional procedures to help implement it, versus a belief that at least one of the bargaining units that the sheriff's office has, that the letters of agreement actually trump or overwrite Measure P. So if you look at Measure P as the controlling document, it says we're supposed to have unfettered access to the internal affairs database, so then we would know whenever a case like this opened. We don't actually have unfettered access to the internal affairs database. We have metered or fettered access, meaning we only see the cases that the sheriff's office chooses to show us or make visible to us. Which, from, as I understand it, their perspective is that that's consistent with the letters of agreement. So if you read the letters of agreement as trumping Measure P, that would be appropriate. So there's one way in which we are not currently on the same page. And it's also one reason why when I first started here, I didn't think a notice requirement was going to be needed, because when I started here, I could look at everything in the AI database. I can't now.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Sure.
So that changed?
It changed shortly after I started here in 2022. So under Sheriff Essick, I could see everything in the Internal Affairs database, and the Lieutenant of Internal Affairs gave me a guide through everything that was in there. It was very helpful. I don't have that access now.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Just an indication of how the flower blossoms and blossoms and blossoms, right? So, having heard what John just said, there are so many different ways forward, right? One way forward is to prepare a letter that just says, hey, Sheriff Ingram, we feel like X, Y, Z. Would you please consider that, right? That's one. Another way of doing it is to say, we reviewed your public information officer guidelines, PIO stuff, right? and we feel like there are these 3 items missing. Here are 3 items that we think belong in your PIO policy, you know, the policy within the greater policy that governs the PIO stuff. This type of incident, this type of injury, you know, boom, boom, really, you know, spelled out. Or, you know, I just heard John say, actually, there's some other stuff too, right? And so now you're talking about a new ad hoc territory, basically. So that's what this body has to decide now, is the lesser approach, some middle approach, or a full court press approach, right? As I see it.
Yeah, so are you proposing one over the other?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask what the opinion of the chair and co-chair that added this to the agenda, what your take on the 3 options that you just laid forward with. And I'm sure you have an opinion on, or came with an opinion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to look at one. I mean, the ad hoc on Iolera Investigation Authority actually already, one of the goals suggests that that ad hoc would take on your 3rd issue, which is investigate and analyze internal and external impediments to the investigative authority of Iolera.
Like not having access to the system.
Like not having access to the system, like not being told when certain things happen. You know, I think that there's 2 issues here. One is telling the public, perhaps through the CAC. The other is telling Iolera when they're more confidential, you know, because certain things that Iolera and the sheriff share are confidential, and we don't know about them.
Rightfully so.
And so this would, you know, I think that I would, at least initially, lean towards 1 and 2 and let the ad hoc deal with number 3 that in your 3-part scenario.
So all.
Well, he's on that ad hoc too, so it all works out very nicely.
I kind of think we should start with the first idea of a letter that kind of directs and distinguishes what Nancy just said and how maybe the public should be informed and how Iolero should be informed. And maybe we can wait for a response from the sheriff, and then your ad hoc can decide if that's something that you want to work on, or we initiate looking at the PIO policy or whatever that policy is called, to do work on that based on the response we get from Sheriff Ingram. That would be my suggestion. Yeah, Dr. Watt.
So, yeah, I think that it would be irresponsible to provide a letter without reviewing the PIO guidelines first. So I think, I agree with your suggestion, but I would say review the PIO guidelines and not suggest something that's maybe prohibitive or whatever.
Well, in the drafting of the letter, I think that should be part of what we do. We want to make sure that we sound like we educated on ourselves on what his policy says that they should be doing, and if we kind of see like, oh, it doesn't mention anything about talking about serious injuries or deaths or follow-up on incidents or anything like that, we can suggest like that's not in your policy, and then wait for a response, and then if he says, no, I don't have time to do that, or whatever he responds, then we can go from there and make those suggestions on what we saw was missing in the policy, or have the new, or have the Iolera Investigative Authority ad hoc decide if they want to do some work on that, or maybe it could be an ad hoc for next year. But I do think we should start with something.
Let me offer to do this, given this conversation. I would offer to draft something for, and run it by Elena, and maybe run it by.
We can do it together.
And then, you know, and then bring it back to you, and you guys can see what you think.
And that would that include sharing the PIO guidelines if you receive them.
Yeah.
We can include them, and I like to hyperlink stuff. I don't know if you guys noticed in like the work plan, we hyperlinked things that we were referring to. So when that goes online, people can click on those hyperlinks and be directed to those documents. And I think we can do that on the draft letter that we can bring back next
That's what we're on the
month.
same page.
Okay, so Nancy and I are volunteering. Does anyone else want to? We can do it. Okay.
Okay,
we'll get
thanks,
you.
Nick.
Okay, any opposition to that? Everyone's good?
Sounds great. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Baby steps. Okay, we are moving on to item 6. This is where we're going to adjourn for. Give us a second.
Go through the rest of it and for the ad hocs that we want to meet right now. We meet. But don't come back.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Do it, yeah.
So we're going to move on with the rest of the agenda. And then at the end of the meeting, any ad hocs who want to meet, I know the immigration ad hoc will be meeting, we will meet once we adjourn. So we're moving from item 6 to skipping item 7 and moving on to item 8, CAC committee reports. And we'll start with community engagement.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have a more recent update. I was sick and then I was out of town for work and busy, but we do have, our plan is to start the meetings, the monthly meetings here, setting them up with my committee, but I apologize for not having a more robust update.
No problem. Immigration and Sonoma County Sheriff's Office?
We're gonna meet tonight. We are actually gonna be looking at our SMART goal number 4, which is the issue of whether we're gonna recommend ending all cooperation with ICE, which we were gonna put off, but given what's been happening in the community, we think that we need to look at that tonight, so that's what we're gonna talk about tonight.
Language access ad hoc. So we've acquired the sheriff's office language access plan, and then we got that of the county. The next step is to schedule a meeting amongst our ad hoc to review the policies and go over the first of our SMART goals, which are mostly research-based. So we'll be, I'll be sending out an email to schedule that probably sometime this week. Sending the email this week, not meeting this week, sorry. ILR Investigative Authority ad hoc?
Yep, so we met a couple of weeks ago. I missed that meeting, but my fantastic ad hoc still got together and finished everything, all the work off. They put together all the SMART goals, and we had kind of drafted it out, but they put it into a very nice table format, which I actually really appreciate because it's easy to read and it's quick. So please check that out, and we'll obviously meet tonight, and we're going to try and get John to our next meeting in a few weeks. So we're kind of ramping up for the final from the appeals court decision that's going to come down here soon, hopefully, like it sounds like next month, and then that will kind of kick off a lot of our more public work. So expect stuff next month for sure.
Okay, thank you. Jail programming?
Yeah, I heard back from Jennifer at the jail yesterday about her preferred schedule times when we could come, so I'll just be bouncing that back with the ad hoc team and hopefully getting something scheduled this week. And we'll hopefully have a tour before next month.
Awesome. Thank you. Open time for public comment on non-action items from this agenda or items not appearing on the agenda. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none from.
I want to say thank you again, like I often do, because I know this is thankless work and boring and really long and tiring. And you keep showing up and doing it, and it's really amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll close out open time for public comment and move on to requests for future agenda items. You know, we'll have that letter on the agenda? Any other requests?
Yeah, the legislation.
I'm going to report on that. Okay, so no other requests. CAC announcements. Okay, so I will start. Last month, I wasn't here, but I did have my notes ready. So John and I met with Will Tisconi from what department again?
He's part of the county executive's office.
Okay, thank you. And so I kind of explained what I had mentioned at the retreat, that in the past I served on a commission where if the commission wanted to support or advocate for or against the bill or anything like that, that the commission would draft letters and then send those from the commission to whatever legislators. And we heard that we couldn't do that anymore, that we had to go through the Board of Supervisors, and I kind of thought like, oh, well, if there's no policy, maybe we could still do that. Well, it sounds like there's a handbook that they just created that's supposed to be used by the advisory bodies for the county. Yeah, and right now it doesn't have any rules on legislative advocacy, but they're adding it, they're working on adding it. I'm not sure how long that's gonna take,
We should get those
but
letters fast.
Is that binding though? I mean, is that just a recommendation or? Like, why do we have to comply with that?
They did say something, and I'm gonna say it because I asked it. So they said if it's listed out in our bylaws that we are allowed, or that we do advocacy on proposed bills and stuff like that, then we could go ahead and do that while they're working on the handbook. But otherwise, we can't. Or
Oh,
like,
come
basically,
on.
we shouldn't.
So can
Should-
you open
should-
up the previous thing so I can recommend that you adjust your bylaws next month?
So,
Seriously,
I think.
I agree.
Just to be clear, I think by bylaws, they meant your authorizing document, which for us would be Measure P.
Oh, can't enforce
Yeah.
very easily.
Okay.
but otherwise, we can ask our supervisors to support or oppose bills.
It sounds just unconstitutional, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
I mean, they can't tell us to not be advocates for,
Well, you
Some
can do it as
public
an individual,
Oh, right,
but
okay, yeah.
not as CAC members.
you know,
But we could, like,
Ask the
ask the
supervisor.
supervisors
Yeah.
to support that legislation. We could write
We should do that.
a letter
yeah.
to the Board of Supervisors saying,
Yeah, that's been done.
That's been
Yeah.
done in the past too, by the CAC.
Yeah.
They've done both ends.
we just can't write to the legislator.
Directly from CAC.
Right.
So at our agenda planning meeting, we'll talk about what was just brought up by the public and the request that we received on that bill that Jim Duffy told us about. And then we'll figure out if there's, how we can put something together for everyone to bring to their supervisors' attention. Does that sound good? We'll be talking about it at the agenda planning meeting. Okay. Any other CAC announcements?
Yes.
Yes. What is it?
We have the immigration flyers. And we also have these.
Oh, let's pass
The smaller cards are QR codes
For the
that
annual
allow
report.
people to get to our annual reports and how to do a complaint in both English and Spanish.
And do we have these?
Instead of carrying around a heavy annual report copy or complaint forms. you can get to-
No, it's a two-sided document.
I didn't bring the English ones.
But we do have.
We have them.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about those?
So this is the product of the immigration ad hoc work last year. And it was finally finalized and published. And
I do have English.
Oh,
Sorry.
yay, and I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited. And what it has is,
Oh, okay, so this is.
on the one side is what the sheriff's policies, general policies are. This was vetted by them, and on the other side, it basically says what the county has done. And then the QR codes on the back provide more information, direct them to the immigration services that the county has online, and then our newsletters, I think. So, anyway, I'm delighted that these came out.
Yeah, well done. This seems really great and really useful.
And we can thank Ricardo for the design and the ad hoc committee.
List of accomplishments.
List of accomplishments.
And cooperation from the sheriff.
And cooperation from the sheriff's office.
Yes.
And where will these be distributed?
So, go ahead.
Community events, I have, now that you mentioned it, there's a volunteer fair that I'm doing at March 31st, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Backdrop, Becoming Independent. And there is, I'm going blank, Los Cien is doing a board and commission Shark Tank kind of event for their bridge students to get them to do, to join boards and commissions and councils. So I'll have a booth there and I'll bring those with me as well.
Maybe just give a salute to Los Cien just to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was also thinking to the Public Defender's Office.
Yeah, that's a great.
Yes.
And also, our Sonoma County Legal Aid has a wonderful group of people involved with helping people with immigration issues too. And so I would suggest the Sonoma County Legal Aid also.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's another suggestion, other county departments. This is approved by the county.
You're welcome to take minutes.
Oh, yeah. I'll probably ask you for one way.
So thank you, this has been great. Really appreciate it.
Okay, discussion on possible topics to publicize? Any ideas for the newsletter?
I think we should announce it.
Agreed. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we're going to adjourn this meeting at 7.
Actually, I also think we should put in the newsletter a link to our letter with all of our short plans, the letter to the Board of Supervisors.
That's a good idea.
Yes, we will do that. We'll have an announcement that our work plan and SMART goals were approved, and once ISD adds those, we'll link that and include it in the newsletter. Okay, so seeing that there are no more items or ideas, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 7:38 p.m. to the next meeting on April 8th here in this room at 6 o'clock. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.